as they continue to mingle on the Senate floor, let's talk about one of the bigger challenges facing the nation tonight. Continues to be some of the air traffic, flight delays, flight cancellations, thousands of disruptions taking place on the daily as the government shutdown continues to impact airports around the country. Standing by is Randy Klatt. He's with the Foundation for Aviation Safety. Always good to have you on. My big question tonight, especially if, and it does appear that we are getting closer to the government being funded than we have seen in the past 40 days. There's a little bit more optimism this week, Randy. Once the government does get funded, how quickly does the nation's air traffic systems get back to normal? Will this be an immediate rebound, or will it take some time once the government begins getting funded?
I think it'll take a little bit of time. The airlines will be in a hurry to get back to normal schedules, and I think they can do that. How many delays or cancellations we'll see is hard to tell. As you know, we've been short of air traffic controllers for decades, so when we get back to whatever is normal, still puts us in a pretty tight position where often controllers are still working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, just as a normal operation. So I don't think anything is going to change dramatically. If you look back 45 days ago, those cancellations, a few hundred a day, that's probably what we're going to be seeing as we go forward from here. And it'll get better, but only when we hire more air traffic controllers and get that system figured out.
You focus on aviation safety. What have you noticed in recent days over the past week as far as near misses at major airports? I heard of one close call at LAX within the past week.
Yeah, there have been several, and that's interesting because they're making the news now because people are interested in the subject. But when you really look at the numbers, we average well over 1,000 runway incursions every year in this country. In fact, last fiscal year, right up until October, just last month, we saw 1,480 runway incursions in the country for that fiscal year 2024. So that's 4 or 5 a day. So these kind of things happen pretty regularly. It's a combination of events. Sometimes it's just a vehicle on the runway or one that failed to get across the runway in time or didn't get clearance to do so. You know, there are minor incidents like that, but then there are other ones like the one you mentioned or the one in Boston with the Cape Air and the Delta airplane. Those are the more serious ones. The good news, I guess, is you could say we avoided serious incidents in that the system worked. Air traffic control did what they had to do. The pilots did what they had to do to correct the situation. No one got hurt. The bad news is, of course, for every one of those that happens, the odds of a real serious outcome increase. So, again, we just need to get our act together as far as the FAA, air traffic control staffing, updating the systems. This new initiative by Secretary of Transportation, I think, is a good one. And I look forward to what can happen in the next few years as we improve the system and hopefully get the manning situation figured out.
You know, the air traffic control situation, as you've alluded to, was a discussion even before this government shutdown. The near misses also. You bring up an interesting point, and I think a lot of people have this question, which is, do we focus more on the near misses, things of this nature? It's probably too soon to say with any concrete evidence. It takes time to collect data about these types of things. But is that a facet when we're in times like these? In some cases, does social media, broadcast media, do they fixate more on things, smaller things like near misses, while we're focusing on something like a more national issue relating to air traffic control problems?
I agree completely. That does happen. It's what's in the news is what's on the top of people's minds. So when we have a shutdown and people are worried about air traffic control and flight delays and all of that, and then we have an airplane that has to go around or aborts a landing because of another airplane on the runway or a close call, something like that, then that raises the awareness even more and people get more concerned. And so with each story that we see like that, we see increased interest in it, which, overall is not unexpected, and it's not a bad thing. The more publicity that we can put on it, quite frankly, the better. That's one thing the Foundation for Aviation Safety is always trying to do, is raise awareness, just so the flying public and the public officials, the people who are supposed to be monitoring the system, like the FAA, make sure that we're all aware of what's really going on, what's happening to the safety margins out there, and hopefully that will spur some action. I think that the unfortunate truth is that it often doesn't happen. We don't see vast improvement or anything significant until there is a tragedy. I think the DCA mid-air collision back on January 29th is a perfect example of that. Suddenly now we are interested in air traffic control and near misses and shortage of air traffic controllers. That should have been managed years and years ago, and it fortunately doesn't happen until something really bad occurs.
One thing I keep hearing from people is, oh man, I'm glad I'm not traveling right now, or I'm glad I'm not on a plane right now. I'm glad I'm not traveling. The margins for safety don't change despite some of the challenges that the nation's facing and airports are facing, correct?
Well, I'd say in a perfect world, that's true. Now, when you have air traffic controllers who haven't been paid for a couple of paychecks, and they're in a stressful job to start with, as you can well understand. It's one of the most stressful jobs anyone could have. These are really professionals, really super individuals who are very talented, very dedicated to the job. But everybody has their limits. And you add the stress of the job under normal situations, add to it the fact that they're not getting paid, add to that a few people are just unable to handle the stress and are calling out, as they should if they don't feel like they're fit for duty. You put all that in together, and you've got a situation that does erode the safety margins. It just has to. Decision making is so important for those folks, and what affects decision making more than stress and fatigue? Those are really insidious incidences that act on your brain, and it's not a good situation for anyone. So for a controller who has to make these split-second decisions, who has to talk to multiple airplanes all at the same time, they're traveling at hundreds of miles an hour, you don't really have the luxury of being able to just sit back and relax for a minute. And so the stress can really make things a lot more hazardous, and that's really what we're concerned about. It's not a stress-free job to begin with, but we've just made it that much worse. So I do look forward to getting back to what we think is normal, and making some improvements as we go along.
Randy Klatt is with the Foundation for Aviation Safety. Thanks.
Thank you, Austin. Take care.